The laughter echoed down the narrow school hallway, cruel and mocking, bouncing off the lockers like knives against glass. Miss Caroline Harper, the quiet new teacher in the small town of Willow Creek, was their target. She stood still, holding her stack of books, while a group of older students sneered at her. Her plain clothes, her calm voice, her gentle demeanor. To them, she was just another weak teacher who could be pushed around. What no one in that school knew was that Caroline had once stared down criminals far more dangerous than teenage bullies. Because before she chose this quiet life, she had been an FBI agent. Caroline had come to Willow Creek searching for peace after years of high-pressure missions and life-threatening encounters. Teaching English literature to small-town kids seemed like the kind of normal she had long craved. But small towns had their shadows too. A group of troublemaking students, spoiled, arrogant, and used to scaring their way through life, saw her as an easy mark. They mocked her in class, ignored her lessons, and spread rumors that the timid teacher didn't belong. The bullying grew worse each week. Caroline found graffiti on her classroom door, her car tires slashed, and even cruel notes shoved into her desk drawers. Other teachers noticed but whispered it was better not to challenge the ringleaders. Their parents were wealthy and influential. Caroline felt the old fire stirring inside her. The one she thought she'd buried. She wasn't afraid for herself, but she couldn't stand by while bullies poisoned her classroom and scared other students into silence. One evening, as she walked home under the dim streetlights, Caroline's mind flashed back to her FBI days. Nights when she trailed dangerous fugitives across dark alleys, when fear had no room in her body. When she relied on her training, instincts, and willpower. She realized then these kids thought they were untouchable, because no one had ever shown them consequences. They needed to learn, and if it had to be her, then so be it. The next day Caroline walked into class with the same calm presence, but beneath her soft eyes was a steel edge. The bullies tried their usual tricks, snickering, mocking her accent, tossing paper balls. But this time she responded with precision. She called out their every move with sharp observation, catching them before they could act. She exposed their lies with evidence and questioned their motives so intelligently that even the rest of the class turned to watch in awe. It wasn't anger she used. It was control. The kind of psychological strength she had mastered in interrogation rooms. The bullies were rattled, but they didn't give up. After school, they cornered her in the parking lot, thinking they'd scare her into silence once and for all. "You don't belong here, teacher," the ringleader sneered. Caroline set down her bag and looked each of them in the eyes, unflinching. Her voice dropped into the calm, commanding tone she had once used on criminals. "Do you know what fear looks like? I've stared into the eyes of men who would kill without hesitation. You're just children pretending to be wolves." Before they could react, she demonstrated her training. Quick, controlled moves that disarmed their attempts to intimidate her. She didn't hurt them, but she made sure they understood how powerless they truly were when faced with someone who wasn't afraid. Their laughter died instantly, replaced with shock and silence. For the first time, they realized their teacher wasn't weak. She was stronger than anyone they had ever met. The next morning, the whispers spread through the school like wildfire. Miss Harper stood up to them. "She's not just a teacher." Some curious students even researched her name and uncovered pieces of her past. Her commendations, her work in the FBI, her reputation as a fearless agent. Respect replaced mockery. The same bullies who once laughed at her now avoided her gaze, their arrogance shattered. Caroline didn't seek revenge. Instead, she turned the moment into a lesson. In class, she spoke about strength. Not the kind that comes from fists or cruelty, but the kind that comes from discipline, knowledge, and courage. Slowly, the atmosphere of her classroom changed. Students who once cowered under the bully's shadow began to speak up, emboldened by her presence. Weeks later, the bullies were no longer leaders of fear but silent participants, humbled by the woman they had underestimated. Caroline finally felt the peace she had sought. Not by hiding from who she was, but by embracing it. She had proven that even in a small town, even in a quiet classroom, her strength could still make a difference. And so, the lesson lingered not just with her students, but with the entire town. Never laugh at someone you don't truly know. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the loudest power.